Hello there, I'm Jack, and today I want to talk about ascension. What would life be like in an ascended state? So it's a concept that's puzzled me, and I've always wondered, what would life be like in those states? Because it's kind of hard to imagine living in this level of reality. And the first thing I want to touch on with that is discrimination. It's a big characteristic in most of my videos, as you've seen. So, but I feel like it's fundamental. I feel like that is a fundamental aspect to this universe, which is dynamics, it's duality, it's oscillation, it's fluctuation, and that's energy. All the same thing. So, if we understand that, I feel like understanding ascension might be a lot different in terms of what it is and isn't. And so that's the first thing. What is ascension and what isn't ascension? It can be a very stimulating concept because what it does is it creates a difference. And so that difference creates a dynamic between what is and isn't. So there's a state of neutrality, and then as soon as we say these things are ascension and these things aren't, we create a dynamic and a difference. And it can be fun to play that game because then we meet people in life that aren't ascending. They aren't doing these things to ascend, and but we are. And so we're doing ascension type work. But to me, it's really not about that discrimination game again. It's not about looking at people as not ascending and other people, usually people on our team, ascending. Because then, we create another division, we create another duality. We're looking down on those people, and then we're looking up to people who are doing the things that we believe are ascensions, are forms of ascension. So with that, we can look at it like a diagram. So these things would be ascension and these things would be non-ascension. So in ascension, people might want to look at that as doing good, helping others, saving the environment, rather than being bad, going against the grain and breaking the rules, hurting others and destroying the environment. So when we have this, and let's say it's giving rather than taking, when we start seeing it as being these characteristics rather than those, we encapsulate them. And so we start living in a level of division and duality between the two. And so that level of division is really what determines our state of being. And that's the most important thing. If you notice, you can do this with just about anything. You can do this with any duality you want, and the characteristics of those dualities. But let's look at politics, for example. We have Republicans and Democrats. And so Republicans view life a certain way. I'm not trying to say they're not ascending, so don't get caught up in that battle, that fight. And I'm not trying to say Democrats are those who are ascending. What I'm trying to show is that they both feel like their qualities are the good qualities. Both sides feel that way, so there's a fight. But if you really want to get to this is what I want to put emphasis on. We have to see politics. What does politics do? This is the big picture. When we get so caught up in our own values and rather than the values that we're fighting, it's a constant exchange or relationship, and it just keeps going round and round and round because they're saying I'm right and they're saying I'm right and you're wrong. No, it can't be that way. That's bad for the people. No, it can't be that way. That's bad for the people. So the relationship goes around and round and round. Realize politics. Realize there's no real right and wrong in which way you want to go, because if this side wins, it's gonna affect another group of people. It's just like the 51% wins. The other 49% don't get what they wanted in that battle, in that fight, in that election. So it's not the complete right answer. Democrats don't have the total right answer that fits everyone. And same with Republicans. No matter how much they want to believe that what they want to do in life and policies is going to benefit everyone, they just simply see that they're going to benefit their team that they're fighting for. And that's all that really matters, because they're living in this bubble. They don't really want to consider how Democrats feel about it. And if they do, that consideration is a negative one. It is still a fight and a discrimination, saying, I know you want to live life that way, but I'm going to fight so that you don't, because I don't want to live that way. So that's the hard part with duality. Of course, we feel a certain way about life and someone else feels another way about life. And it's hard to totally agree with everyone, because then we're all living the same color. We're all shining the same color, and it's really boring if everything were the same color. And that's something a lot of people don't consider in this whole ascension thing, is that people feel like it is about being one color, that whole oneness concept. But like I said, picture and feel into what it would be like if everyone agreed on everything. Kind of hard to imagine in a way, but I don't feel like that's the actual point. I don't feel like that's the actual form of ascension. I feel like it is an aspect of it, just like this. There are these aspects, and there are those aspects. So in those aspects, in helping others rather than hurting others, and saving the environment rather than destroying the environment, giving rather than taking, slowing things down, in meditation rather than speed things up with fast-paced schedule or work, or physical labor. Meditation is metaphysical labor, and work is physical labor. So look at the qualities of one, which you can find online. Just look them up, and they have a whole list of what is ascension and what isn't ascension. And notice, ascension is the stuff that we're usually not doing, and non-ascension is the stuff that we are doing. So that's really something to consider. And what it does is it creates a very stimulating battle between two. Of course, we'll constantly try to push away the old stuff, the non-ascension stuff, and then try to do the whole ascension stuff. But is it really about one and not the other? And that's probably the biggest thing that I want to touch on. And I'm going to show you understanding spheres and toroids. So that is, to me, key in this, because when we say it's about one when we say it's about one thing rather than the other, what we're doing is we're creating a pressure on one side, neglecting the other side. And so it creates a larger stretch. But I'll show you what that stretch looks like in more of a torus shape. So if we have that stretch between what is and isn't, we create a funnel, basically, and we say, like, let's say attachment and detachment. That's a big one. You know, there's a philosophy: detach yourself from everything, and you'll be happy. You know, get away from fear, because fear is bad, and always trust in everything. And so we have this, you know, attachment detachment duality at play. But what it does is eventually it shrinks into a funnel, a core. But if you polarize it, which is duality, north and south pole, we see that it's a two-part system, and it doesn't really matter which way we go. So it's not about one or the other, it's about both at the same time. And so, you know, these will wrap around, and notice that encapsulation of what is ascension and what is not ascension. So you can see it's a flow going up and down, north and south pole, and east and west. So it's about all of them, and that's what I wanted to show with a circle or a sphere. If you go in any direction on that sphere because you feel like that is the point in life, you're just going to wrap right back around to where you were. You're just going to go right back to where you started. Even if you go any direction you want to go, you're going to end up back to where you were. And that's the conundrum with this. So we have all these characteristics between what is and isn't ascension, which is very important. Because it can create a big stretch between the two. You know, we're pushing away people that are showing signs of non-ascension, and we're inviting people that show signs of ascension. But all we're doing is we're just creating a bigger difference between two of us. We're creating another duality within a duality, a cycle within a cycle, discrimination class within a discrimination class. So we're still just living in that same level of duality if we attach ourselves so harshly and detach ourselves so harshly. So it's about attachment, detachment, both sides of it. But notice when they shrink, both sides get closer to each other. Start seeing more of a oneness, a core. You know, there is very difference in opinion between, let's look at attachment and detachment duality. You know, people will say over here, they'll say, you know, or ascension people will say that it's all, detachment isn't the point. Detachment is bad stuff. That's for non-ascenders. I mean, attachment, because attachment, all it does is that creates lust, it creates fear, and all these other bad things. And detachment is what we need to do, because it creates trust, it creates independence, and freedom. And so those are all the characteristics of ascension, and all those characteristics are non-ascension. The way I view it right now is that it's not about one or the other, because when we start doing that, all we're doing is creating a greater stretch, which is stimulating at the time, because then when we come across things that are showing signs of non-ascension, it's very stimulating on a negative way, and all we want to do is just be like, God, you just don't see it. How do you not see that you're not ascending? Ugh! And then when we see people that are ascending, it's just like, oh yes, you're awesome. Everything about you is just so amazing. God, I can't even help myself. And so you can see it's very stimulating to have that difference. And when we see people that emulate those characteristics between what isn't or what shouldn't be and what should be. But when we realize it's about both. It's about attachment and detachment, because there are good and bad things about both those qualities in life. So there is a bad thing in detachment, you know, and people don't want to look at it that way, but yeah, especially people who have been so attached. And that's what I want to make note of. When we've been doing something for so long, which is usually this stuff that, you know, we have lived, of course, all we want to do is go to the other side and feel what that feels like. And so we feel like that's the point. But the big thing is that there are good and that's the sphere. Good and bad things out of both. So there are good and bad things that happen out of detachment, because if we try to detach ourselves from old programs, we may lose out on friendships. People might feel like they just don't care about us anymore, and that might be it. That could possibly be it. But if we're still trying to be in a relationship while being detached, very, very awkward, because I've done it before. Don't totally recommend it. We have to be attached at some point too. And there are also bad things that happen out of attachment. That's addiction. I mean, you know what I mean. So there are bad things that happen out of attachment too. Good and bad things. When we're attached, we love someone. We can also be overly attached. There's always a fine line with either one. And same with detachment. There are good things that happen out of detachment and bad things that happen out of detachment. So it's realizing the difference. There is no real difference, or there doesn't have to be. And when we really start seeing that with any duality, give and take, eating food, for example, is consumerism. Consumerism is bad because that's what we've been doing for so long. So we need to give. We shouldn't kill animals because we feel empty. But really, it's a little bit about both. Consuming allows us to produce and give. So seeing the relationship between the two is what I want to make note of. If the whole point of life is to not eat, then where is that energy coming from, and what are we doing? Where, if we're meditating the whole time, doing metaphysical work, we're not doing physical work. We're not going to enjoy swimming in the lake. We're not going to enjoy playing physical instruments and hearing the music with our physical ears. And people may say that's exactly what we're trying to avoid and what we're trying to get off of. Great, you can go do that, but then there's another aspect to it, which is a spectrum. It's just like this is a continuous spectrum of light vibration, and we live in a particular sliver of that spectrum, which is visible light. It's a continuous spectrum now, and at the front of it is the color white, and at the back is the color black. And so people say it's all about white light, not black light. But really, if you shift that spectrum, that particular spectrum that you're looking at, you'll have white and black no matter where you go on this. So if we just take a particular sliver of this and we were to shift that, let's say we were looking at this right here, we can call that consciousness, that bubble consciousness. If we're conscious of this spectrum, this level of vibration going from long, which would be red, all the way up to violet, which would be higher, we can shift that down to this. And this will be now red, and this will be white. Will be violet. Black and white, because black is at the bottom, right at the butt, and white is at the front. So it's not about white rather than black, because it doesn't matter where we shift it in the spectrum, in the vibrational spectrum, it's always going to be there. White and black are always going to be there, because all that is that's just the forefront. White is the forefront of our conscious bubble of our spectrum, and black is at the back of it, the butt. So that's what I want to make note of. And it doesn't, we tend to favor one more than the other, but it's really about seeing both attachment and detachment, white and black. And that's what ascension is. So to me, it's really about seeing both. And more we see both, we see the difference between the two as being almost equal, like they need each other more and more. Masculine and feminine need each other more and more, rather than being all about masculinity, all about being femininity. So when we realize that the difference between the two doesn't have to be so conflicting, that's when we ascend into higher vibrations of light, or finer vibrations of light, and we move closer into that point of singularity in that torus that I just showed you. So we don't have to create this dynamic between what is and isn't ascension. Just like when people say, living in ascended states, there's no money. Well, that may be the case. There's no paper money, but concept of currency might still be there. So, money might be in the form of love, appreciation. So two people do things. Yeah, they might not need a third party physical paper, but there might still be something exchanged. It could be a hug. We might even look at hugs as currency. So yeah, there are many things that we can use for currency. It doesn't have to be so physical, but just showing that people might say ascended people, people who, what I showed you in that diagram. So people over on this side might say the point of ascension is to not have money, and then obviously the people over here that aren't ascending are still working for money. So it's not so much about money as being the issue. It's how do we go about money? That's what I want to touch on. That is, to me, the form of ascension. Same thing with music. How do we go about music? We can still play physical instruments. We can still work for money. But how do we go about it? What is our stretch and dynamics? So with this, let's look at this side now, because it's still the same thing. I just cluttered it. But so if we say, of course, money might be the issue because we work jobs that we don't enjoy, so we can go work or pay for happiness over the weekends, so we hate half the week doing something that we don't enjoy so that we could pay for a weekend, or pay for a weekend, a vacation, or whatever. Pay for things to enjoy to make up for it. And then we have the case of the Mondays, because it starts all over again. That cycle, that stretch is being pulled. We're so fucking ecstatic over the weekend. And then, the weekdays, it's just like, God, I cannot believe I'm doing this again, So that's that extreme that I'm talking about. It's not money that is the issue. It's how are we going about money? Are we separating our personal lives from our work lives, and vice versa? Are we a completely different person when we're at work than when we're at home? And usually the more suppressive one is than the other, of course, we have such a stretch. But when we start combining the two together, our work lives and personal lives get closer and closer together, there isn't that dynamic. And so we're not so much working for the weekend anymore, because every day is a weekend. And we're not really needing to buy vacations, and going in these exotic places because we don't enjoy where we live, But that's what this ascension thing is. That's what that's about, is how are we going about where we live and the work that we're doing and the people that we're hanging around with, Are we forcing ourselves into it? When I was in college, I did not like the people that I was around totally. I mean, I was in class, I had to be there. I didn't have to, but there's that stretch again. So it's really when every time I was outside, and I'd see these people that I wouldn't have chosen to be around, if I were in a different situation. And so, of course, I drank on the weekends. I was looking forward to it because I wanted to escape that reality that I didn't want to be in. And so it's the same thing with work life and personal life, It's the same sort of escapism. So that's what I want to show. And if we start really paying attention to those things, and really start trying to work our lives into that, that's what will happen with this ascension. Higher vibrations, our energy changes, our energetic level changes, and then we don't have to look at the same thing so divided. We don't have to look at those jobs the same way. We don't have to look at where we live the same way, and so we don't have to create that discrimination class. We just have to realize what's at play, the energy at play. So, when I talk about higher vibrations, it's just like a guitar. When we're playing a guitar, it's not about playing higher and higher notes, on the guitar fret, because then we're just missing out on the rest of the neck. And it's not only about playing those bass notes that are just so low, and we miss out on all the nice, pretty stuff at the light, or at the front, the white light rather than the black light. So, to me, it's about playing the guitar. That is ascension, learning how to play the guitar, not necessarily songs way up here like, ascension people like to talk about. Increase your vibration on all that. Yes, it's very nice, it feels good, but we're only playing songs up here. And so it's really about seeing the whole spectrum of it, seeing the whole rainbow. It's not all about emulating violet, the color violet. We want to be red sometimes, so we'll play songs in the key of red, the vibration of red, frequency of red, and all that. So it's about the rainbow, which is a continuous spectrum. It's about the guitar, the whole guitar, which is a continuous neck. So that's what I want to talk about in terms of ascension, and in playing this and that game, and we don't have to get so caught up into it. Realize it's a little bit of both, and when we pull both of them together, just like ice skaters, ice skaters, when they're spinning, their arms are really wide like this. They're spinning a little bit slower, but as they pull them in, angular momentum just whips them around. And that's what I mean by find the forms of ascension, and to find what used to be doing, pull them together, pull in our light and dark selves. It's that shadow. So when we have light beaming light on us, and then we see the shadow, all we want to do in that ascension myth is say, it's just get away from the shadow. I hate the shadow. It's all about this light that's coming in. Not so much. It's about me in between the light and the shadow. I am the thing in between, that's in between the two, the dynamics between the two. That is the thing to really pay attention to. It's that core. So it's that point of singularity. To me, it's the divine unity. So yeah, don't look at it as being all about light and no shadows. Join the two together, and that's when things will start changing. So I hope you can take something away from this, and subscribe somewhere. But yes, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them. I enjoy them. So yes, thank you, and I hope you can do something with this and take something away from it. So thank you again. I appreciate it.